Tom McCarthy. Dear Liz, forgive me for taking 25 years to reply to your last letter. I'm writing to you because last week my parents politely asked me to remove the last of their belongings from their basement. I didn't leave much there, a few milk crates filled with college books and a small lockbox that contained some keepsakes from my youth. I opened the box and found a stack of letters held together by a single rubber band. Those letters were from you. They were sent over the year-and-a-half period after we met at the Young Life summer camp, the summer camp with a faith-based initiative. 2 hours on water skis and 1 hour discussing how to enjoy Jesus in high school at the same time. I saw you for the first time on the big field. You were my exact size, but perfectly proportioned. You had black hair and brown eyes and a little pug nose. I wasn't so fortunate. My arms were short and my legs were long and wire thin. I had a tiny torso and a rather large head. The next morning, I was close to certain you were noticing me on the hike to the heavens. And then, as I was on my way to quiet reflection by the lake, I was finally convinced you were noticing me. Then one evening, our cabin counselor, Roger, gave us a pep talk. That night was the big dance, and I think Roger sensed the rising tide of panic gripping the cabin. Tonight, I want you all to be confident in who you are because God made you exactly according to his specifications. I pictured my oddly shaped body laid out on some graph paper in God's studio. I wondered if my buck teeth were part of the plan or just a production error. And then he looked directly at me and said, "So you should marshal forth into the dance tonight with the confidence of God's perfection, regardless of your size, your shape, or your overbite." I jumped up and screamed, "Praise Roger!" I marched into the barn on a holy mission. I was going to notice you, and I was going to notice you hard. I moved to the center of the dance floor and I scanned the room. Then I saw you, perched perfectly on a stack of hay, hair held back with a bright red ribbon and your hands clasped in your lap. You look like a tiny movie star doing a photo shoot for Ralph Lauren's fall riding collection. I planted my 2 feet firm, lowered my gaze, and I noticed you with all my might. 3.5 days of yearning were behind us. You told me you were from Canada. I asked if you lived in an igloo. You shrieked with laughter. And I knew at that moment there was a very good chance I would spend the rest of my life with you. But then, just as our affair had ignited, fate intervened, this time in the form of a dance caller. Pick your partner and skip to the loo. And with that, the room began to spin. I looked around, rattled by the sudden commotion, and when I looked back, you were gone. I had no choice but to jump into the crush. We do-si-doed closer and closer to each other. You were still noticing me. And I was noticing you right back. The dosing, the doing, the noticing. It was intoxicating. And then our hands met. A charge shot through my little body, and I could tell by the arch in your brow you felt it too. We started spinning. Faster and faster, our tiny, sweaty hands clutching tight as if our lives depended on it. Hey, little campers, switch your partners and skip to the loo. But I wanted nothing to do with the loo. The other kids started to back away, sensing something divine was happening. A few counselors tried to intervene. They simply bounced off us. We were fused, anointed by the Holy Spirit. The other kids started to chant, "Love spin, love spin." Finally, one of the counselors climbed onto the stage. "I want you two to separate right now." Without the band playing, you could hear the whir of our spin. I imagined it was similar to the sound of angels at play. "In the name of God, I compel you to let go." How dare he compel us in the name of God? Our love spin was clearly an act of God. And that's when I saw the flicker in your eyes. Doubt. Then I felt your fingers slipping. Finally, you locked eyes with me and simply mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." I fell backwards into an abyss of darkness dumped among the scattered hay. I watched from the floor as you were swept into the air, your tiny legs dangling lifelessly in the arms of a counselor. When camp was over, I returned home and I stopped attending Young Life meetings. Then later that summer, I received your first letter. Your words were so delicate and tender. There was even a cute drawing of you in an igloo eating seal meat. And they kept coming every 2 or 3 weeks, each one ending with a gentle plea for me to reply, but I never did. I never even thought about it. I couldn't forgive you for letting go. I simply put a rubber band around them and locked them in a metal box, never to look at them again. Until today, that is. I sat on the floor all afternoon reading your letters and drinking Coors Light from my father's private stock. Finally, I arrived at the last letter. That's when I read those 20 words that have forever changed me. You wrote, "Well, I have to stop writing now. My palm is sweating and that makes it hard to grip the pen. I'm sorry, that's gross." I gasped and I took a long pull of my Coors Light. You never stopped loving me, Liz. You didn't let go of my hands. You slipped away due to some physiological disorder. That's what you meant when you mouthed, "I'm sorry." You were sorry that you had gross, sweaty palms. But my pride, my silly, silly male pride wouldn't let me see that. No, God, I'm fucking lonely. And I have no one to blame but myself. Unless, of course, you're still single. And perhaps we could arrange to meet up and have dinner or at least a drink at some point. I just happen to be single right now myself. I know it's been a long time, but it's worth a shot. I could even come see your igloo. Ha ha. Write back soon, please. Warm regards, Tom. Thank you.